The unexpected patient. In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, nestled within the renowned celestial Nexus space station, the Galactic Health Institute stood as a beacon of medical advancement. Its crystalline structures housed the most sophisticated medical technologies from across the known universe, tended to by the brightest minds of 100 different species. Dr. Zixera, a Zentorian with iridescent scales and 4 dexterous arms, glided through the corridors of the intensive care unit. Her bioluminescent patches pulsed with a soft blue light, indicating a state of calm focus. As the lead cynobiologist of the institute, she had seen her fair share of medical marvels and horrifying ailments, but nothing could have prepared her for the patient that awaited her in Bay 17. Dr. Zixera, a voice chirped from behind her. She turned to see Dr. Krell, a Valerian intern with large, owl-like eyes and downy feathers. The human patient. His vitals are critical. We've never treated a human before, and the database has limited information on their physiology. Zixera's bioluminescence flickered with concern. What's the preliminary diagnosis? Krell's feathers ruffled as he consulted his holographic datapad. It appears to be Nexus fever, but that's impossible. No known species has ever survived more than 48 hours after contracting it. Nexus fever. The mere mention of the disease sent a shiver down Zixera's spine. It was a terrifying illness that had claimed countless lives across the galaxy. No cure had ever been found, and its origin remained a mystery. As they entered Bay 17, Zixera's gaze fell upon the prone figure on the biobed. The human male looked small and fragile compared to the array of advanced medical equipment surrounding him. His skin was pale and clammy, dark circles under his closed eyes. The monitors above the bed displayed a chaotic array of vital signs, most of them flashing red. "What's his name?" Zixera asked, her voice soft with compassion. Krell consulted his datapad again. Alex Jensen. He was part of a human diplomatic mission to the Rigelian system. They diverted here when he fell ill. Zixera approached the bed, her sensitive scales picking up the heat radiating from Alex's fever-racked body. She placed one of her hands on his forehead, feeling the unnatural warmth. "How long has he been symptomatic?" "Approximately 36 hours, Krell replied. The Rigelian ship's medical officer recognized the symptoms and insisted on bringing him here. They didn't expect him to survive the journey. The Zentorian doctor's mind raced. Nexus fever typically killed within 48 hours. If Alex had already been symptomatic for 36 hours, they were working against an impossibly tight deadline. But Zixera had not earned her reputation by giving up on patients. "All right," she said, her voice taking on a tone of determined authority. "Let's start him on a broad-spectrum antiviral regimen. Adjust the environmental controls to match Earth's atmospheric composition and gravity. And I want a complete genetic scan. If there's anything unique about human physiology that might give us an edge, I want to know about it." As the medical team sprang into action, Zixera found herself studying Alex's face. Humans were still a relatively new species on the galactic stage. Their resilience and adaptability had surprised many, but they remained an enigma in many ways. Now, this human might hold the key to understanding one of the most deadly diseases in the galaxy, if only he could survive long enough. Hours passed in a flurry of activity. Zixera and her team worked tirelessly, trying every treatment and technique at their disposal. But as the 48-hour mark approached, Alex's condition continued to deteriorate. "Doctor," Krell said, his voice heavy with defeat, "his organ systems are failing." "I don't think." "No," Zixera cut him off. "We're not giving up. Increase the dosage of the nanite regenerators, and get me a direct neural interface. If we can't heal his body, maybe we can preserve his mind until we find a cure." As the team rushed to follow her orders, Zixera placed all 4 of her hands on Alex's chest, closing her eyes in concentration. She wasn't typically one for spiritual beliefs, But in that moment, she found herself silently pleading with the universe to spare this one life. The hours crawled by, each moment a battle against the inevitable. The medical bay was a whirlwind of activity, with doctors and nurses from various species lending their expertise. But as the station's artificial night cycle began, a somber quiet fell over Bay 17. Zixera stood at Alex's bedside, her luminescence dimmed with exhaustion and sorrow. The monitors told a grim story: multiple organ failure, massive cellular degradation, neural activity fading. By all accounts, Alex Jensen should already be dead. "I'm sorry," she whispered, more to herself than to her unconscious patient. "We did everything we could." She turned to Krell, who had remained by her side throughout the ordeal. "Prepare the stasis pod. It's a long shot, but if we can preserve his body, there might be a chance someday." Krell nodded solemnly and moved to carry out her orders. Zixera took one last look at Alex, marveling at the fragility and tenacity of life. Then, with a heavy heart, she left the bay to prepare her report for the human diplomatic team. Little did she know that in just a few short hours, everything was about to change. The impossible was about to become possible, and the foundations of galactic medicine were about to be shaken to their core. For in the quiet hours of the artificial night, while the doctors slept and the machines hummed, Alex Jensen's body was undergoing a transformation that would rewrite the rules of biology itself. The stage was set for a medical miracle that would challenge everything Zixera thought she knew about life, death, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. A miraculous recovery. The soft chime of the station's artificial dawn cycle roused Dr. Zixera from her fitful sleep. For a moment, she lay still in her quarters, the events of the previous day washing over her like a heavy tide. The human patient, Alex Jensen, had been on the brink of death, another tragic victim of the merciless Nexus fever. With a heavy heart, she prepared herself for the grim task of informing the human diplomatic team of their colleagues' passing. As she made her way to the medical bay, her mind was already racing with the report she would have to file. The failure to save Alex weighed heavily on her, but she consoled herself with the knowledge that they had done everything possible. Perhaps the data they had gathered would contribute to finding a cure someday. The doors to Bay 17 slid open with a soft hiss, and Zixera stepped inside, her eyes automatically going to the biobed where Alex had lain. She froze, her forearms tensing in shock. The bed was empty. "Dr. Zixera." Krell's voice came from behind her, filled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "You're not going to believe this." Before she could respond, a sound she never expected to hear filled the room. Laughter. Human laughter. She whirled around to see Alex Jensen, the man who by all rights should be dead, sitting up in a chair by the window, his eyes bright and alert, as he chatted animatedly with a bewildered nurse. "What in the name of the 7 moons of Centauri?" Zixera breathed, her bioluminescent patches flaring with shock. Alex turned at the sound of her voice, a wide grin spreading across his face. "Ah, you must be Dr. Zixera. I hope you don't mind, but I got a bit restless lying in that bed. Thought I'd get up and stretch my legs a bit." Zixera approached him cautiously, as if he might disappear if she moved too quickly. Her medical tricorder was already in her hand, scanning furiously. "This is impossible," she muttered, staring at the readings. "Your cellular structure, your organ function, they're not just normal. They're operating at peak efficiency. It's as if you were never ill." Alex shrugged, still smiling. "I feel great, actually. Bit peckish, though. Any chance of getting some breakfast around here?" The next few hours were a whirlwind of tests, scans, and increasingly baffled medical professionals. News of Alex's miraculous recovery spread through the celestial nexus like wildfire. Doctors and researchers from every corner of the station flocked to Bay 17, each eager to witness the medical miracle for themselves. Zixera found herself at the center of a storm of questions and theories, each more outlandish than the last. Some suggested divine intervention. Others proposed unknown alien technology. A few even whispered about secret human abilities that had been hidden from the galactic community. Through it all, Alex remained remarkably calm and good-humored. He submitted to every test with patience, cracking jokes and asking questions about the various alien technologies being used on him. "So, Doc," he said to Zixera as she reviewed yet another set of scan results, "on a scale of 1 to breaking the laws of biology, how weird is this?" Zixera's luminescence pulsed with a mix of amusement and frustration. "Mr. Jensen, you've shattered our understanding of Nexus fever and possibly revolutionized our entire approach to xenobiology. Weird doesn't begin to cover it." As the day wore on, patterns began to emerge from the flood of data. Alex's immune system had not just fought off the Nexus fever, it had adapted to it, integrating aspects of the virus into his cellular structure. His body was now producing antibodies that, in preliminary tests, seemed capable of neutralizing the virus in vitro. The implications were staggering. If they could understand how Alex's body had achieved this, it could lead to a cure not just for Nexus fever, but potentially for a host of other diseases that had long plagued the galaxy. But as excitement built among the medical staff, Zixera found herself growing increasingly concerned. The uniqueness of Alex's condition made him an invaluable research subject, one that many would be eager to study, perhaps not always with his best interests in mind. She pulled Alex aside during a lull in the tests, her voice low and serious. "Mr. Jensen, I hope you understand the significance of what's happened to you. Your recovery could save millions of lives across the galaxy." Alex nodded, his earlier levity fading into a more somber expression. "I'm starting to get that, yeah. It's a lot to take in. There will be those who will want to study you extensively," Zixera continued, choosing her words carefully. "Some may not be as concerned with ethics as we are here." A wry smile tugged at Alex's lips. "Are you saying I might be in danger, Doc?" "I'm saying that your life has become very complicated, very quickly," she replied, "and that you should be prepared for what's to come." Alex was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting to the window and the star-filled expanse beyond. When he spoke again, his voice was filled with a quiet determination that Zixera was beginning to recognize as characteristically human. "Well, Doc, I didn't survive an incurable disease just to become a lab rat. Whatever's coming, we'll face it together. After all, we've got a galaxy to save, right?" Zixera felt her respect for this remarkable human growing by the moment. "Indeed we do, Mr. Jensen. Indeed we do." As they turned back to the bustle of the medical bay, neither of them could have predicted the challenges and wonders that lay ahead. The miracle in Bay 17 was just the beginning of a journey that would reshape the future of the galaxy and redefine the potential of humanity itself. The stage was set for a grand adventure, one that would test the limits of science, ethics, and the bonds between species. And at the center of it all was Alex Jensen, the man who had looked death in the eye and lived to tell the tale. Unraveling the mystery, in the days that followed Alex Jensen's miraculous recovery, the celestial nexus became a hive of activity unlike anything in its long and storied history. Scientists, researchers, and medical professionals from across the galaxy descended upon the station, all eager to unlock the secrets hidden within Alex's transformed physiology. Dr. Zixera found herself at the center of this scientific maelstrom, coordinating teams, analyzing data, and fending off overzealous researchers who seemed to forget that Alex was a sentient being and not merely a fascinating specimen. "No, absolutely not," she said firmly, her bioluminescent patches flashing with irritation as she addressed a group of Arcturian geneticists. "We will not be conducting any invasive procedures without Mr. Jensen's full understanding and consent. This isn't a race to publish papers, it's about saving lives." As the disappointed Arcturians filed out of her office, Zixera felt a headache building behind her four eyes. She had always prided herself on her cool, analytical approach to medicine, but the events of the past few days had tested her emotional control to its limits. A gentle knock at her door provided a welcome distraction. "Come in," she called, expecting another eager researcher, or perhaps Krell with more test results. Instead, Alex Jensen's lanky form filled the doorway, a lopsided grin on his face. "Hey, Doc. Thought you could use a break from all the poking and prodding. Fancy a walk?" Zixera found herself returning his smile, her irritation melting away. "Mr. Jensen, that sounds like an excellent idea." As they strolled through the station's botanical gardens, a green oasis amidst the sterile corridors and humming machinery, Zixera marveled at how quickly Alex had adapted to his new surroundings. He greeted alien species with easy charm, his natural curiosity evident in the way he peppered Zixera with questions about the exotic flora around them. "So, Doc," Alex said, pausing to admire a shimmering crystal flower, "any breakthrough in figuring out why I'm not, dead?" Zixera's luminescence dimmed slightly. "We're making progress, but it's slow. Your physiology has changed in ways we've never seen before. It's as if your body has formed a symbiotic relationship with the Nexus fever virus, but instead of harming you, it's enhancing your cellular regeneration and immune response." Alex whistled low. "Sounds like I've got some pretty impressive roommates in my bloodstream. Any chance this makes me immortal? Because I've got to tell you, I've always wanted to try out that live fast, die never lifestyle." Despite herself, Zixera found herself chuckling. "I'm afraid immortality isn't on the table, Mr. Jensen. But your lifespan may indeed be significantly extended. Your cellular degradation rate has slowed to an unprecedented degree." They walked in companionable silence for a moment, the air filled with the soft chirping of alien birds and the rustle of otherworldly leaves. "You know," Alex said quietly, "when I signed up for this diplomatic mission, I thought the biggest challenge would be remembering all the correct honorifics for the Rigelian royal court. Funny how life throws you." Alex's voice trailed off as he gazed at the stars visible through the garden's transparent dome. "Funny how life throws you curveballs. One minute you're preparing for a diplomatic mission, the next you're at the center of a galactic medical mystery." Zixera nodded, her scales shimmering in the artificial sunlight. "Indeed, the universe has a way of appending our carefully laid plans, but sometimes, Mr. Jensen, chaos leads to the greatest discoveries." As they continued their walk, Zixera's communicator chimed urgently. She answered, her antenna twitching with curiosity. After a brief exchange, she turned to Alex, her eyes wide with excitement. "We need to get back to the lab immediately. Dr. Krell believes he's found something significant." They hurried back to the medical bay, where they found Krell hunched over a holographic display, his feathers ruffled with excitement. As they entered, he looked up, his owl-like eyes blinking rapidly. "Dr. Zixera, Mr. Jensen, you're not going to believe this," Krell chirped, his words tumbling out in a rush. "We've isolated a unique protein in Mr. Jensen's bloodstream. It appears to be a hybrid of human cellular material and components of the Nexus fever virus." Zixera leaned in, her four eyes narrowing as she studied the rotating molecular model. "Fascinating. It's as if the virus has been reprogrammed at a fundamental level." Alex peered at the display, his brow furrowed. "So, what does this mean exactly?" In layman's terms, Krell's feathers puffed up with excitement. "It means, Mr. Jensen, that your body didn't just fight off the Nexus fever. It absorbed it, modified it, and is now using it to enhance your own cellular functions. It's unprecedented. We need to run more tests." Zixera said, her mind already racing with possibilities. "If we can understand how this protein works, we might be able to synthesize it. This could be the key to developing a cure for Nexus fever." Over the next few days, the medical bay became a hive of activity. Researchers worked around the clock, running simulations, conducting experiments, and poring over mountains of data. Alex submitted to countless tests, his patience and good humor never wavering despite the grueling schedule. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, a picture emerged that was as exciting as it was perplexing. The unique protein in Alex's blood, which they had dubbed Jensen's catalyst, seemed to act as a universal adapter for his immune system. It could identify and neutralize a wide range of pathogens with astonishing speed and efficiency. "It's not just Nexus fever," Zixera explained during a briefing with the station's senior staff. "Preliminary tests show that Jensen's catalyst is effective against dozens of known galactic diseases. It's as if Mr. Jensen's immune system has developed a universal translator for pathogens." The implications were staggering. If they could replicate Jensen's catalyst, it could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia could potentially be cured overnight. But as excitement grew, so did concerns. News of the discovery had leaked beyond the confines of the celestial nexus, and Zixera found herself fielding calls from government officials, corporate representatives, and even religious leaders from across the galaxy. "The vultures are circling," she muttered to Alex one evening as they shared a meal in the station's cafeteria. "Everyone wants a piece of you, Mr. Jensen. The Regellian Empire is claiming you as their property since you fell ill in their territory. The Earth government is asserting their rights to protect their citizen. And don't get me started on the corporations offering obscene amounts of money for exclusive research rights." Alex took a bite of his meal, a concoction that was supposedly analogous to Earth pasta, but looked more like bioluminescent seaweed. "And here I thought my biggest problem would be adjusting to alien cuisine," he said with a wry smile. "So what do we do, Doc?" Zixera's luminescence pulsed with determination. "We stay focused on the science. Politics and profit can wait. Right now, our priority is understanding Jensen's catalyst and finding a way to synthesize it safely." As they discussed their next steps, neither of them noticed the hooded figure watching them from across the cafeteria, its 6 eyes gleaming with malevolent interest. The next morning, chaos erupted in the medical bay. Alarms blared as security personnel swarmed the area. Zixera rushed in, her heart's pounding, to find Alex's bed empty and signs of a struggle evident. "What happened?" she demanded, her normally calm demeanor shattered. Krell approached, his feathers drooping with distress. "It was a coordinated attack, Doctor. They disabled our security systems, and they took him. Mr. Jensen is gone." As the reality of the situation sank in, Zixera felt a cold dread settle in her stomachs. The miracle that could save billions of lives across the galaxy was now in the hands of unknown assailants. And more than that, a man she had come to regard as a friend was in terrible danger. With grim determination, she turned to Krell. "Alert station security and contact the Galactic Council. We need to find Mr. Jensen, and we need to find him now. The fate of more than just one human is at stake here." As the station erupted into frenzied activity, Zixera couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger and more dangerous game. The race to unravel the mystery of Jensen's catalyst had taken a dark turn, and the consequences would ripple across the galaxy in ways none of them could have predicted. The hunt for Alex Jensen and the miracle cure he carried within him had begun, and Zixera vowed she would not rest until he was found, no matter the cost. The greatest medical discovery in galactic history had just become the most sought-after prize in the universe, and the stakes could not be higher. The human factor. As alarms blared throughout the celestial nexus, Dr. Zixera found herself in the heart of a storm. The medical bay, once a place of hope and discovery, now swarmed with security personnel and frantic researchers. The air crackled with tension and fear. "I want every scrap of data from the last 24 hours, Zixera barked, her usual calm replaced by fierce determination. "Security feeds, docking logs, comms traffic, everything. Whoever took Mr. Jensen didn't just waltz onto this station without leaving a trace." As her team scrambled to follow her orders, Zixera felt a pang of guilt. She should have anticipated this. The promise of a universal cure was too tempting, the power it represented too great. She had been so caught up in the scientific marvel that she had underestimated the lengths to which others would go to possess it. A gentle touch on her arm pulled her from her thoughts. It was Dr. Krell, his large eyes filled with concern. "Dr. Zixera, there's something you need to see," he said softly, guiding her to a secluded corner of the lab. On a small holo-projector, a message flickered to life. Alex Jensen's face appeared, his expression a mix of determination and apology. "Doc, if you're seeing this, it means things didn't go according to plan." Alex's recording began. "I overheard some of the security chatter. I know there are people coming for me. People who don't care about using this cure to help others. So I'm doing the only thing I can think of. I'm leaving." Zixera felt her heart stink. "Oh, Alex," she murmured, "what have you done?" The recording continued, Alex's voice growing more urgent. "I've arranged passage on a small transport. Don't worry. I've taken precautions to mask my trail. I can't tell you where I'm going because, well, I don't know myself. But I promise you, Doc, I'll find a way to get this cure to the people who need it, not the ones who want to profit from it." As the message ended, Zixera found herself torn between admiration for Alex's bravery and frustration at his recklessness. "When did he send this?" she asked Krell. "Just before the alarms went off," Krell replied. "It was on a delayed timer." "Dr. Zixera, do you think he staged his own kidnapping?" Zixera's mind raced, piecing together the evidence. The signs of struggle, the disabled security systems, it could all have been an elaborate ruse. "It's possible," she said slowly. "But if that's the case, he's in even more danger than we thought. He's alone out there, carrying the most valuable medical discovery in galactic history, with no idea who he can trust." As if on cue, the lab's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The stern face of Admiral Vex Tora, head of galactic security, filled the display. "Dr. Zixera," the Admiral's gravelly voice boomed, "I assume you're aware of the situation." Zixera straightened, her professional demeanor snapping back into place. "Yes, Admiral. We're doing everything we can to locate Mr. Jensen. This is now a matter of galactic security," Vex Tora declared. "The human's disappearance has caused a diplomatic incident. The Earth government is demanding his immediate return. The Rigelian Empire is threatening military action if he's not handed over to them. And we have reports of at least 3 major criminal syndicates mobilizing to find him." The enormity of the situation hit Zixera like a physical blow. What had started as a medical miracle was rapidly spiraling into a potential galactic conflict. "Admiral," she said, choosing her words carefully, "I believe Mr. Jensen may have left the station voluntarily. He's not a prisoner or a test subject. He has rights." Vex Tora's expression hardened. "Rights? Doctor, surely you understand the bigger picture here. One man's rights versus the lives of billions across the galaxy. There's no comparison." As Zixera opened her mouth to argue, a commotion at the lab entrance drew her attention. A group of humans in crisp uniforms had arrived, led by a tall, authoritative woman with steely eyes. "Dr. Zixera," the woman called out, "I'm Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. We need to talk about Alex Jensen. Now." The next few hours were a blur of tense discussions, political maneuvering, and barely veiled threats. Captain Reyes made it clear that Earth considered Alex Jensen a vital national asset and demanded his immediate return. The Rigelian ambassador, joining via hologram, countered that Jensen's cure was discovered in their territory and thus belonged to them. Through it all, Zixera found herself acting as a buffer, trying to keep the focus on the scientific and humanitarian aspects of the situation. But with each passing hour, as reports flooded in of ships mobilizing and tensions rising across the galaxy, she realized that the situation had grown far beyond her control. In a rare moment of quiet, Zixera retreated to her office, her mind whirling with the day's events. She found herself staring at a small holo image captured during one of the early days after Alex's recovery. In it, Alex was grinning broadly, giving a thumbs up to the camera as Zixera explained some test results. The sight of it made her heart's ache. A soft chime at her door roused her from her reverie. It was Krell, looking more disheveled than she had ever seen him. "Dr. Zixera," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I've been going through the station's outgoing transmissions from the past week. There's something you need to see." He placed a data pad on her desk, displaying a series of encrypted messages. As Zixera read through them, her bioluminescent patches began to pulse with alarm. "These are communications between someone on our medical staff and an unknown external party," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They've been leaking information about Jensen's catalyst for days." Krell nodded grimly. "It gets worse. The last message, sent just before Mr. Jensen disappeared, contains detailed data on his physiology and the latest test results. Whoever has this information could potentially replicate Jensen's catalyst without needing Alex himself." Zixera finished, the implications hitting her like a thunderbolt. As the full weight of the situation settled upon her, Zixera realized that the stakes had just gotten even higher. It wasn't just Alex who was in danger now, but potentially the entire galaxy. If Jensen's catalyst fell into the wrong hands, it could be weaponized, used to create new and deadlier pathogens instead of curing them. With grim determination, Zixera stood, her forearms clenching with resolve. "Krell, I need you to do something for me, and it's not going to be easy." "Anything, Doctor?" the young Valerian replied without hesitation. "I need you to cover for me," Zixera said, her mind already racing with plans. "I'm going after Alex, alone." As Krell's eyes widened in shock, Zixera began gathering supplies. She knew she was potentially throwing away her career, maybe even risking her life. But she also knew that she couldn't stand by and watch as politicians and criminals tore the galaxy apart in their quest for power. Somewhere out there, Alex Jensen was on the run, carrying within him the key to saving countless lives. And Zixera was determined to find him before anyone else did, no matter the cost. As she prepared to leave everything she knew behind, Zixera couldn't help but marvel at the strange turns her life had taken. She had always believed in the power of science to change the world. Now she was about to embark on an adventure that would test not just her scientific knowledge, but her courage, her ethics, and her understanding of what it meant to be truly human. The hunt for the miracle cure and the man who carried it was about to take an unexpected turn, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. A new frontier. The sleek contours of the stellar Whisper cut through the inky vastness of space, its stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to both visual and technological detection. In the ship's compact cockpit, Dr. Zixera's four hands danced over the controls with surprising dexterity for someone more accustomed to wielding medical instruments than piloting starships. 3 weeks had passed since her clandestine departure from the Celestial Nexus. 3 weeks of following whispers and rumors, of calling in old favors, and making new, sometimes questionable alliances, all in pursuit of one human who had unwittingly become the most wanted man in the galaxy. "Computer, run another scan for ships matching the profile I specified," Zixera commanded, her voice tight with fatigue. She had barely slept since beginning this quest, her usual calm demeanor frayed by the constant tension of their situation. As the computer chirped its compliance, Zixera allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought of Krell, hoping the young Valerian was managing to keep her absence under wraps. She thought of the chaos she had left behind, the political tensions, the scientific community in uproar, the looming threat of conflict. But most of all, she thought of Alex Jensen, alone and on the run, carrying within him a miracle that could save billions. A sudden beep from the console snapped her back to attention. "Scan complete," the computer announced. "One vessel matching specified parameters detected in nearby asteroid field. Caution: heavy interference from mineral deposits affecting sensor accuracy." Zixera's bioluminescent patches pulsed with excitement. This was the closest lead she'd had in days. "Set an intercept course," she ordered, her hearts racing. "And activate all stealth systems. Let's not announce our presence just yet." As the stellar whisper glided silently through the asteroid field, Zixera prepared herself for any eventuality. She had come too far to fail now. The target ship came into view, a battered freighter that had clearly seen better days. It was tucked into the shadow of a massive asteroid, its systems powered down to minimal levels, a perfect hiding spot for someone on the run. Zixera maneuvered her ship closer, using the asteroids for cover. Just as she was about to hail the freighter, a warning klaxon blared. "Multiple ships detected," the computer announced. "Signatures match known pirate vessels. They are on an intercept course." Cursing under her breath, Zixera quickly assessed her options. She could flee, potentially losing her best lead on Alex, or she could stay and fight, risking everything on the chance that Alex was indeed aboard that freighter. In the end, it wasn't really a choice at all. Zixera had come too far to turn back now. "Computer, open a channel to the freighter," she commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "And prepare defensive systems." The comm crackled to life, and Zixera spoke quickly. "Unidentified freighter, this is Dr. Zixera of the Galactic Health Institute. You have incoming hostile vessels. If Alex Jensen is aboard, please respond immediately." For a heart-stopping moment, there was only silence. Then, a familiar voice filled the cockpit. "Doc, is that really you?" Relief flooded through Zixera. "Alex, thank the cosmic tides. We don't have much time. There are pirate ships approaching. Can your vessel fight?" "Fight? This rust bucket is barely holding together as it is," Alex replied, a note of panic creeping into his voice. "What's the plan, Doc?" Zixera's mind raced. "Prepare for emergency docking. I'm bringing you aboard." As the stellar whisper maneuvered into position, the first volley of pirate fire streaked past them, illuminating the asteroid field with deadly light. Zixera's hands flew over the controls, weaving through the barrage while simultaneously guiding the docking procedure. With a metallic clang that reverberated through the ship, the freighter locked into place. Moments later, Alex Jensen burst into the cockpit, looking haggard but very much alive. "Doc, I can't tell you how glad I am to see you," he began, but Zixera cut him off. "Strap in," she ordered, already plotting an escape route. "We can catch up once we're not being shot at." What followed was a harrowing chase through the asteroid field. Zixera pushed the stellar whisper to its limits, using the natural cover of the asteroids to evade the pirates' superior firepower. Alex, for his part, proved to be a quick study at the weapons console, laying down suppressing fire that kept their pursuers at bay. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was likely only minutes, they burst free of the asteroid field. Without hesitation, Zixera punched in the coordinates for a hyperjump. As the stars stretched into streaks of light around them, both Zixera and Alex slumped in their seats, the adrenaline of their escape giving way to exhaustion. "So," Alex said after a moment, a wry smile playing on his lips, "come here often." Despite everything, Zixera found herself chuckling. "Mr. Jensen, your capacity for humor in the face of mortal peril continues to astound me." As they settled into the relative safety of hyperspace, Alex filled Zixera in on his adventures since leaving the celestial nexus. He had bounced from planet to planet, always staying one step ahead of those hunting him. Along the way, he had made contact with an underground network of scientists and humanitarians who were working to distribute Jensen's catalyst to those who needed it most, free from political or corporate interference. "It hasn't been easy," Alex admitted, his earlier levity fading. "There have been close calls. Too many close calls. But every time I thought about giving up, I'd remember the faces of those we helped on the Nexus. The families reunited, the lives saved. It kept me going." Zixera listened intently, her respect for this remarkable human growing with every word. "You've done more than anyone could have asked of you, Alex," she said softly. "But you don't have to do this alone anymore." She brought him up to speed on the galactic situation, the political tensions, the threat of war, and the race to replicate Jensen's catalyst. Alex's face grew grave as he absorbed the information. "So what now?" he asked. "We can't keep running forever, and I won't let this cure be used as a weapon or a bargaining chip." Zixara's bioluminescent patches pulsed with determination. "Now, we change the game. I have an idea, but it's risky. It could change the face of galactic medicine and politics forever. Are you with me?" Alex's answering grin was all the response she needed. Over the next few weeks, as they hopped from system to system, always staying one step ahead of their pursuers, Zixara and Alex put their plan into action. They made contact with a network of underground scientists, coordinating a massive data dump of all the research on Jensen's catalyst. The information was broadcast simultaneously to every major scientific institution, government, and media outlet in the galaxy. But they didn't stop there. Using Alex's unique physiology and Zixara's medical expertise, they developed a method to safely replicate Jensen's catalyst. The production process was complex but used commonly available materials, ensuring that it could be reproduced anywhere in the galaxy. As news of their actions spread, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Governments and corporations scrambled to be the first to implement the cure. But more importantly, grassroots movements sprang up across the galaxy, with beings of all species coming together to produce and distribute Jensen's catalyst to those in need. The final piece of their plan came in the form of a galactic address. Standing side by side, human and alien, Alex and Zixara broadcast a message to every corner of the known universe. "People of the galaxy," Alex began, his voice strong and clear. "We stand at a crossroads. The cure we've provided could herald a new age of health and prosperity for all beings, or it could be used to further divide us, to be hoarded by the powerful at the expense of the many." Zixara continued, her luminescence pulsing with passion. "We challenge you, all of you, to choose wisely, to see beyond the boundaries of species, of planet, of nation, to recognize that in the face of suffering, we are all one people." Their message concluded with a call for a new galactic initiative, a cooperative effort to combat disease, share medical knowledge, and ensure that no being, regardless of their origin or status, would ever be denied life-saving treatment. The response was beyond anything they could have imagined. While there were certainly those who resisted, who clung to old prejudices and power structures, they were overwhelmed by the tide of beings who embraced this new vision of a united, healthy galaxy. In the months that followed, Alex and Zixara found themselves at the center of a medical and social revolution. The Galactic Health Cooperative was formed, with representatives from every known sentient species working together to implement and improve upon Jensen's catalyst. As they stood together on the observation deck of the new GHC headquarters, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go, Alex turned to Zixara with a smile. "You know, Doc," he said, "when I signed up for that diplomatic mission all those months ago, I never imagined it would lead to this." Zixara's luminescence pulsed warmly. "The universe has a way of surprising us, Alex. I've learned that the greatest discoveries often come not from careful planning, but from being open to the unexpected." As they looked out at the stars, both felt a profound sense of hope. The road ahead would not be easy. There were still challenges to face, minds to change, and diseases to conquer. But for the first time in galactic history, it felt like all beings were truly united in a common cause. The miracle cure that had once threatened to tear the galaxy apart had become the foundation for a new era of cooperation and understanding. And at the heart of it all was the indomitable spirit of humanity, represented by one man who had faced death and emerged with a gift for all living beings. As a new ship docked, bearing the insignia of a world that had until recently been hostile to the idea of galactic cooperation, Alex and Zixara shared a knowing look. Their adventure was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The universe, it seemed, had plans for them yet.